Hi folks, Paul here, and welcome to something new. This is the Fireside Friday Podcast, and this is something I have been thinking about for ages and have finally got round to doing. The sort of idea behind it all is that I want to try and capture the fact that fire is this amazing sort of levelling, humbling thing that people just seem to flock to and open up around. And I wanted to try and capture that for people that can't get outdoors, or perhaps people that are missing it, as well as for people that kind of want to talk about the ideas that come out around a campfire. So for me, campfires are amazing because a lot of the times it's where I have my most sort of emotional or intense conversations, and I wanted to try and capture that. There's a lot of brilliant outdoor podcasts, and you know, I enjoy them, but there's nothing that I feel like captures, you know, why we do what it is we do. There's lots of brilliant podcasts that maybe talk about, you know, the kit that we use to do what we do, or maybe the skills. But for me, what I wanted to try and capture with this podcast is the very essence of why we do it, the reason for doing it. And so I'm going to try and capture that. I'm going to film a video every 2 weeks. This first episode is just going to be me, and I'm just going to be kind of talking about a few different ideas and things that have come to me over the past couple of weeks. But I did put a post up on social media and had some fantastic feedback, and I've got loads of people lined up to kind of come and take part. And that's what I'm looking forward to, is having conversations by a fire with people and sharing in that experience. Unfortunately, because it's all live, and I'm not going to do any edits, no cutting, nothing, we are going to experience stuff like this where I may need to stop and tend the fire at times. There may be noises, there may be birds or deer or all sorts of things, but that's just kind of the stuff I want to capture. You know, I want to really get the nature without any filter on it. It would be quite embarrassing if I had a fireside podcast without fire, though. So yeah, I've got loads of really interesting people that have kind of signed up to come along and perhaps film an episode. I'm going to try and do it every 2 weeks. I don't want to do one every week because I think that would just be a bit too much, a bit too overwhelming. And I want to try and make sure they're with people rather than just me sat here rambling on, because I know that isn't really everyone's cup of tea. And so before we kind of disappear into our ramble, I wanted to sort of extend the invitation to the people on YouTube that are only just sort of learning about this for the first time. If you guys feel like you'd love to come and sit next to me and have a conversation next to a fire about, you know, the universe and all sorts, or maybe what it is you do, or anything, whatever comes to mind, if that's something you'd be interested in, then just leave a comment below or drop me a message on Facebook, and we can sort of get you added to the list. I put a post up on my Facebook. Some of you guys may have seen it if you've come across from there, and had some really cool feedback. People were really excited about it, and so you're going to get smoke in the face in real time. And so I'm excited to kind of film those episodes with people. But in today's episode, it's just going to be me and you, and I'm just kind of going to wander off. I'm going to see where my thoughts take me. I did kind of have a topic in mind. I was out for a walk one day picking mushrooms, and I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I'm doing something, so if I'm out walking, or if I'm making something with my hands, sometimes I enter this like state where I go into, I think it's, a lot of people refer to it as like a flow state, where you disassociate with what your body's doing and your head goes into its own space. And it's a bit like meditation, I guess, where you're really going into your own head rather than sort of being present as to what's happening outside. And yeah, so I was out for a walk, had this sort of moment where I was in my own head, and weird, I know, and the topic that came to mind was the idea of friendship. I figured that'd be quite a nice thing to get started on, because of course fires are very, very good at creating friendships. They seem to kind of flourish around fires. And I figured it would be nice to kind of talk about that, seeing as I've made so many of my friends, the people that are watching this now even, I've met a lot of them around the fire for the first time, and sort of I've got to know them around the fire and share some of our deepest sort of memories and stories around the fire. And so that's kind of what I figured would be a nice thing to talk about. And then I carried on picking some mushrooms. I found a couple of interesting things. Something happened and I came out of my head, out of that space where I was actually thinking about what it was I was saying. And I'd been having this really profound sort of insight about friendship and what that meant to me and what I wanted to talk to you guys about. And lo and behold, I snapped out of my flow state and completely forgot it. This was about a week ago, and I've still not been able to remember it since, but I have been trying and it's still not come to me. But it did sort of come back to me in a roundabout way, because a couple of days later what I did was decide to go out and film a video for YouTube. And I was having quite a tough day. I was in a bit of a depressive state. I was telling myself, the weather's not right, I don't really have materials, I don't really have the time, I need to be back here by X and X amount of time. Just telling myself all these lies, just lying to myself, and just excuses, reasons to not go out and actually do something. Because for me, crawling into bed, wrapping myself up in my duvet and watching rubbish on YouTube was just a more comforting experience. I didn't have to challenge myself to do that. But what I did was actually realise, now this was a funny thing, I realised I was lying to myself. And I told myself, you know what, I'm not going to listen to that guy. I'm actually going to get my camera, I'm going to get all the stuff I need, all the materials I need. I'm going to go out, I'm going to be really efficient about it. I'm going to get it all done before I lose the light, and it'll be great. And sure enough, that's what I kind of tried to do. And I was having an okay day. I was very proud of myself that I'd managed to get myself out of that state, because I know there's times where I've been in it and I haven't gotten myself out of it, and I will just go to bed and just be unproductive and then feel guilty about it the next day and then the next day. And then you can sort of see how depression spirals that way. But I'd managed to kind of overcome that. I was out, I was filming this video, and it was great. I was kind of getting along. It was going to be a transporting fire video, and then just coming to the last few sort of closing scenes, and I picked up my camera to go and kind of get a nice close-up shot of what was happening. Went to focus, and you just sort of heard this as the lens like tore itself to pieces or something. I'm not a camera guy necessarily. All I know is that it made a big crunching noise and it would not work, and I could not get anything back in focus. I think a bit of debris or something got stuck in it, and so everything I'd filmed, I felt like it had all just gone to waste. I'd spent maybe 2 hours filming. I felt like it had all just been a complete waste of time, because I couldn't finish the video. I didn't want to do it on my phone. I want to actually deliver nice looking content as well as kind of quality content. And yeah, that really hurt. It was a really tough sort of experience, because I had overcome this depression. I realised I was lying to myself, got myself outside, filmed the video, really pleased with how it was going, and then all of a sudden something just went wrong. And when you are able to talk to yourself and identify the things you're doing wrong, I think it puts you in a really vulnerable position. And so I felt really vulnerable. I felt like I was on ice almost, like the slightest thing that went wrong was going to sort of push me back into the depression, because that would have been my safe space. Being at home would have been my safe space, but I'd pushed myself out of it, and I'd kind of come out, try to do this stuff, and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, the universe decided, nope, not today, it's not working, we're going to break your camera and see how you react. And I didn't react well. I got very, very frustrated, I was throwing stuff, I was just angry, I was really angry. And yeah, it was tough, you know. And then on the walk home, I was carrying my broken camera. I was thinking, I wanted to be filming this video today. I didn't have a lens. I didn't have a lot of money to buy a new lens. I had an interview the day after, and so that was stress on top of that. And so I was just thinking as I was going home, you know, what's the point in even trying, you know? That's kind of where my headspace was. And then I thought, right, okay, well, I'm just going to buy a new lens. I'm going to get that out of the way. Hopefully it'll arrive for Friday, today, the day you're seeing this, and I'll be able to film an episode. And then I went back into thinking about what it was when I was thinking about friendship and I'd forgotten about it. I was trying to remember what that was because I wanted to kind of capture that for you guys. Anyway, I couldn't remember what I was thinking about when it came to the friendship the first time around, but it led me to thinking about friendship in a new way. And what it led me to thinking about was the fact that what I need to be is a friend for myself right now, because I was in such a foul mood, so fed up with the world. And what I really needed was a friend next to me to go, hey, you know, it'll be alright, we'll try it again tomorrow, it'll be okay, it'll sort itself out. And sometimes we don't have that, you know. I live quite a solitary life, I guess. Oh. Yeah, so fortunately there's a train track just across the way there, so again, you're getting it all live, no cuts, no edits. But yeah, I live this like really kind of solitary life in some senses, or in some sense rather. I find it really hard to accept friendship. It's not so much that I don't want it or I don't need it, it's that I find it hard to accept it. And I think that stems from a few things. I've lost a lot of my friends through my life, through sort of really tragic circumstances. I watched one of my best friends die. Another one of my best friends was murdered when I was, you know, we were still in secondary school. So, you know, when you give someone that bond, when you become friends with someone, for me it's a really sort of sacred bond you're sharing with someone. You know, you're opening yourself up to a person, you're spending time with them. It's quite a vulnerable position, I find. And so I wouldn't necessarily say, and this is crazy because I know I have friends out there, there'll be people watching this video that are like, oh hey, I'm your friend, obviously, you know, you can talk to me about anything, and I know that. In my head I know that, but I have a hard time labeling people as friends, you know. And again, I think that stems from the fact that I've lost a few friends, but also because it's about being vulnerable to some extent. And I figured what I had to do was realise I was in a position where I was vulnerable, you know, when I was having that really bad day, throwing shit around because it wasn't working, you know, getting upset because I'd pushed myself and it all just blown up in my face. And I realised, look, if you're going to find a friend anywhere, you need to find a friend in yourself, because you can't keep doing this because it's just going to drive you into the ground, basically. And so that led me to thinking about what it's like to be a friend to yourself. You know, what does that look like? And for me, what I've been doing recently is keeping a journal. So I've got it here. I use it for all sorts of different things. But it's like my friend in a way. It sounds crazy, I know. And some people might be scratching their heads thinking I've gone crazy here, but it's like my friend because what I can do is I can write in it. When I'm in a bad place, I can come write in it and then go away again. The bad stuff is now in this book, and then I'm free to go about my day, not worrying about it because it's out of me now, it's in here. And so later on I can come back to it and I can look at what I've written. So I might have written, you know, oh, I'm so fed up with this, I feel so useless or whatever. And I can come back and I can read that. And again, I've written that. I can read it and then I can go, you know, that poor guy just needs to lighten up on himself a bit, you know. So it's like you write down your thoughts in real time, you walk away, you come back, and then you have a conversation with the guy that wrote them down without him being there. It sounds really weird and it's hard to explain, but I hope it makes sense. That's kind of where my head's at with that. And so this journal has been really useful for me. And I think that's, it's a nice way of kind of keeping in touch with yourself, journaling and sort of sharing ideas that way. For me, the way I like to do it, and perhaps this is something, if you feel like you're struggling or being really hard on yourself, or if you're looking for an answer and you can't pull it out of yourself, one of the things I really enjoy doing is asking or having like a conversation. So let's say in my journal I might write, what's bothering me today? And then I'll respond with whatever's bothering me. And then I get into a conversation where I'm really talking about my problems quite deeply, because you're not having to lighten them up for someone else. It's not like you're sort of expressing them to anyone else. You can be really raw with yourself and quite honest with yourself. And so yeah, the journal came in really handy for that. But that's one of the reasons I want to kind of make this podcast, is because I think what I want to try and create is an environment in the outdoors where I can kind of capture that, because I know I'm not alone in what I'm talking about just now. I know there's other people out there that experience the same thing. Some of my closest friends, the few that I really call friends, talk to me about that sort of situations, and I can it really resonates with me. And so I want to try and create a space where I can kind of have those conversations with people outdoors. I know for a fact that if I was at home, sat on the sofa filming this video, it probably wouldn't be as easy. I think there's something about being out in nature. The fire especially, the fire kind of makes you realise how vulnerable you are, especially at this time of year as it's starting to kind of cool down. It makes you kind of appreciate just how vulnerable you are, because you're getting cold, it can be uncomfortable. The fire is that thing that gives you comfort. But also just being out and kind of at nature's mercy, whether it be a train flying past or some geese going overhead, you're just part of everything. And I think that's an incredible medicine, to be kind of in nature and be part of everything and be aware of it, And I think because it kind of, if you can put yourself in that headspace where you really relax into it, I think you can have some of the most incredible conversations with people that way. And so that's what I'm going to try and capture with this podcast, and hopefully it will work. Even if it's just the sounds of the fire or the birds overhead or something, it all adds to the realness of it. Things like that. So, geese flying overhead, for instance. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear them. But it's stuff like that kind of, you're not going to get that on a Zoom call, not unless you're doing some really exotic stuff in your living room or bedroom. You're not going to get birds flying overhead, you're not going to get, the crackle of the fire and stuff. And I think that's what I want to try and capture. And so I hope I can do it. There was one story, again, sort of going back to friendship, that I really wanted to tell because I thought it was quite profound. I was having I seem to have a lot of these recently. I was having one of my hardest days, maybe 3 or 4 weeks back. I'd been outdoors, out in the woods trying to make stuff, and it hadn't been working the way I'd wanted it to. Really sort of frustrated, fed up, suicidal almost even. And I'd come home in a terrible mood, threw all my kit in the cupboard and just gone to bed and slept. For me, there's 2 things that really help me, I guess, when it comes to feeling down. One is being outdoors by a fire, or being busy making something by a fire. And the other thing is sleep. Anyone that knows me very well will know that I like a good sleep. Because in either one of those situations you can disconnect from reality in some sense. So if you're making something like we were talking about earlier, you can enter that flow state where you sort of disconnect from reality and you're no longer experiencing the pain or anything. And sleep obviously, of course, then allows you to kind of disconnect from what's really happening around you as well. They can be quite unhealthy, I guess, to some extent, but they're sort of coping mechanisms. But I was having one of those days where I came home and just went straight to bed because I wanted to escape the reality that I was in. Because I was just so fed up with how unfair everything seemed. And I ended up spending an evening, and I don't recommend this as evening entertainment. I ended up spending an evening looking at different ways to commit suicide. And it was 3 or 4 in the morning, I think. I'd woken up after going to bed like really early in the day just to escape my own head. I'd woken up still not feeling any better and gone down the rabbit hole well and truly, like whoosh, right down. And I woke up and I was feeling quite suicidal. And that's something I battle with every now and again. And I was looking at different ways, you know, the times it takes, the best ways, the most humane ways, all sorts of just horrific stuff, you know. But sometimes it seems like the only way out to, you know, to a person when you're in a certain situation. And I was in that situation. But touching on the friendship, on that day when I was walking home to go to my bed to sleep, to escape this world, what I encountered was a hedgehog in the middle of the road. And I was walking. I don't live in a particularly well built up place. It's not, you know, it's not a particularly nice place, I wouldn't say. You wouldn't want to leave anything unattended for too long, put it that way. I was walking up the road going home, and there was this hedgehog wandering around in the middle of the road, and I seen him there, and of course my gut instinct was to help this poor little guy. He'd somehow managed to find himself on tarmac. He was perfectly fine, he was healthy enough, he was just sort of lost, I think. And he was in the middle of the road and there was cars kind of coming up and down. And I seen him, and I immediately, despite being in this space where all I wanted to do was escape the world, I'd seen this other creature, this other living being going about its life in real danger and distress of, you know, of dying. And I chucked all my stuff aside, axes, knives, I had a basket full of mushrooms, everything, chucked it all aside, pulled out my jacket from my haversack and went over and picked up this little hedgehog. As you can imagine, he wasn't best pleased to be being picked up by, you know, by this overexcited monkey that had spotted him in the middle of the road. But I went over and I picked him up, and I carried, again, abandoned all my stuff, picked up this hedgehog and carried him to the back of these houses, and kind of set him free out the back of there. I sort of unopened my my jacket, I kind of unfolded it and let him kind of walk out into the hedge, and sort of watched him for a couple of minutes as he made his way safely into the field and the hedgerow. And I did that on the same day where I was contemplating taking my own life. And when I was having that bad day recently where I felt like, even though I'd told myself I was going to get out and film this video and it all went wrong with the camera, when I was thinking about friendship, that little guy, that little hedgehog was the thing that came to mind, and it was a story I really wanted to share because, again, I think it attests to the fact that even at your lowest point, one of the most beautiful things you can do for another human being is be there for them. And I've had some of those experiences around a campfire where, you know, I've been talking to you guys like I am just now, and that's kind of what I want to capture. So I'm glad I'm managing to just sort of flow like this. You know, where I've been speaking to people like I am to you guys just now. You know, and people they've saved me, but they don't know it. You know, like that hedgehog. He didn't know I saved him, I don't think. Only I knew that. And when I was having that day where it was like, I was looking at different ways of ending it all, one of the things that really helped was, one, writing it all down in my journal. I made a point of writing it all down. And then when I signed it, I drew a little hedgehog next to it to remind me of the fact that I'd saved this hedgehog, and if I can save this hedgehog, then maybe I can save myself, you know? And so, yeah, I just wanted to kind of share that story in regards to friendship, you know? Being a friend to yourself is really difficult, you know. It's about having that conversation with yourself. That's something we can learn and practice. Like I say, the journal is really good for that, because you can really take note and have an honest conversation with yourself that you might not have otherwise. But also, surrounding yourself with people in an environment where you feel comfortable, like a fire, and being able to speak freely about what it is you're feeling. I think that's maybe why we're here, you know, without getting too deep. I know I wanted to capture the deep elements of the fireside conversation, but there was a guy, some of you guys might know a film called Into the Wild. Some of you guys might be aware of it. It comes up in the bushcraft community every now and again and people talk about it. But there's a film called Into the Wild. A guy called, I think his name was Christopher McCandless or something. And he had this ambition of going out into the wild and living, you know, off nature and just going AWOL basically. Anyway, it didn't go well for him. He ended up poisoning himself after getting stuck because of a river. And he also kept a journal. And one of the last entries in his journal was that happiness is only real when it's shared. And I think that's something we need to remind ourselves of, you know. Whether it be, and it doesn't have to be on social media like this, or YouTube, or any of these things. It can be sharing it with a poor little hedgehog for 5 minutes as you watch him scurry away into the bushes. Those moments are the moments, I think, that really connect us to the earth, without sounding too much like I've eaten the mushrooms that I was foraging. Those moments are the things that really connect us to the earth, you know. And so it's kind of, that's the sort of thing I'm looking to capture with this, and I hope I can do it. But I appreciate you guys taking the time to kind of follow along and be part of it, you know. I put the post up on Facebook and I got like 100 comments of people saying, oh yeah, sure, I'd love to, you know, come along and be part of that. You know, I'd love to have my my eyes smoked to death on camera, that'd be great. And so, you know, being able to share in these sort of videos with you guys is what I'm really looking forward to. So for everyone that has already expressed an interest, thank you. For everyone that's here watching me ramble at you just now, thank you as well. Yeah, I mean, it's again another sort of thing I was thinking about was the fact that I need to make the camera my friend. I need to remember that I'm not just speaking to a screen in the middle of a dark woodlands. What I'm speaking to is maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of people, and that there's people on the other end listening to this. And so trying to get comfortable as well. I'd contemplated, this is going a bit off topic, I'd contemplated putting a pair of googly eyes on my camera so that I could feel like I was speaking to a real person. But I've got to remind myself and be comfortable with the fact that you guys are also there, you know. And whether it be sharing 5 minutes with a random bird in the woods that stops to check you out, bird of the avian variety, or you know, or watching an insect scuttle up a tree or something, or a squirrel, These videos, I hope, will be just as good. I hope that you guys can watch them and feel like you've been part of a conversation with someone or a group of people, hopefully, in the future. And so that's what I'm kind of looking to do. If you guys have any questions or anything like that you want to send our way, you know, for the next episode. The next episode will be in 2 weeks' time. And I'm hoping maybe I'll be able to actually do it with another person, but we'll see. But if you have any questions or anything, then please leave them in the comments as well. I figured it would be quite nice to... I wasn't really sure how to end these things, you know? When you're making a video, and some of you guys might know this if you make videos yourselves, sometimes it can be really hard to kind of find an ending to a video. And if I was thinking about that and thinking about what I might like to do to round out the conversation we've just had. And what I came up with was I would like to share a quote with you guys. And I'm going to do this at the end of every episode where I'm by myself. If I'm with someone else, if I'm speaking to someone else, I'll get them to kind of choose a quote that means something to them. And so I figured we would end on a quote. I don't remember it, luckily for me. I have my journal. And again, another really useful thing about having a journal is the fact that you can just remember everything. I'm notoriously bad at remembering stuff, so this comes in really helpful. Let's see if I can find it. I'm going to need some light. So, in my journal, I have written the quote. I'll let these geese fly over. I wonder what they're talking about up there. It must be pretty interesting. Is that what they're doing? Tell me if there's anyone watching this video now that knows about birds. Are geese communicating when they're doing that? Or is it just like because they're doing so much physical work? Someone in the comments let me know. But anyway, here's the quote to end off this episode. You're going to go through tough times. That's life. But I say, nothing happens to you, it happens for you. See the positive in negative events. Thank you everyone for taking the time to watch this, and I'll see you next time.
Tell me, can you save me? I think I've fallen sick. I have grown to be so angry, and I just can't call it quits.